Welcome to another page in our Atlas of Atrocities. I am Violet Knight, and each episode, I will be your tour guide as we travel to a time and place where horrors abound and there are lessons to be learned. Tonight we go back to my roots, to unearth a legend so dark it has haunted the Scottish shores for centuries. And to this very day, mothers can be heard warning their children not to stray from the beaten path, with the darkly whispered threat, Sawney Bean will get you. Our tale begins in the late 16th century, in the harsh landscape of East Lothian, Scotland. It was here that Alexander Sawney Bean was born, the son of humble labourers who toiled in the fields and hedgerows. Young Sawney, however, had no love for honest work. His heart, darkened by delight in violence, walked a more dreadful path. From a young age, Sawney was exposed to the brutal realities of life. His father, a harsh, unforgiving man, sought to instill in him the value of hard work. Yet Sawney's disdain for honest labour grew with each passing day. His mind wandered to twisted and terrible thoughts, and his heart hardened with resentment. As Sawney grew, so did his violent tendencies. He became known for his quick temper and thirst for violence. Petty thefts and small-time robberies soon escalated into more heinous acts, and Sawney's darkest impulses took over. Fate, it seems, had terrible plans for Sawney. He crossed paths with Agnes Douglas, a woman long rumoured to dabble in the dark arts, and united in their lust for cruelty, they fled to the rugged coast of Ayrshire. There they discovered a hidden cave, its entrance concealed by the rising tides, and it was within this shadowy refuge that they built their den of degeneracy. The couple embarked on a spree of robbery and murder, leaving a trail of blood and terror in their wake, their heinous acts drawing them closer together in that remote cave along the Ayrshire coast, and this place became the very heart of their own dark and depraved domain. Their hideout was ingeniously chosen. Fate had led them to this cave, with its narrow concealed entrance, practically invisible from the outside, where high tide would submerge the entrance, making it inaccessible and hidden to prying eyes. They would be safe here, though no one else would. For over a quarter of a century, the Bean clan grew within the depths of that cave, thriving on the spoils of their murderous raids, the lonely roads between villages becoming hunting grounds. Travellers disappeared without a trace, their remains dragged back to the cave where they would be prepared for the Beans, who had by now descended to the darkest place of all, and had spawned between them their own terrible cannibal clan. Fear gripped the land as limbs began to wash ashore, a grim testament to an unseen horror that gripped the surrounding community. Inside the lair, the Beans accumulated wealth from their countless victims, gold, silver, and goods from all over the region. More horrifying were the remains of their prey, limbs and bones strewn about, a ghastly larder for their cannibalistic feasts. The continued discovery of dismembered limbs along the shoreline sent waves of panic through nearby villages. Fishermen recoiled in horror as they pulled human body parts from their nets. The air grew thick with fear and suspicion as the villagers whispered of dark forces at play. Surely no human could do such things. And so, through whispers and superstition, the legend grew, and the perpetrators of such vile and despicable acts were given supernatural status by those who could not comprehend such horrors at the hands of mere men. Desperation grew among the villagers, and search parties were dispatched, though the hunters often became the prey and were never heard from again. Each search party that set out did so with dwindling hope and increasing fear as it began to seem this terror could not be stopped. an invisible, malevolent force preying upon the innocent and able to claim whoever dared pursue it. One evening, Foster Kennedy and his wife Agnes were returning home from a fair in the town of Girvan. As they journeyed along the narrow road, they were suddenly ambushed by the Bean clan. Foster fought valiantly, but the clan's strength and numbers overwhelmed him, and Agnes was captured and brutally killed. Foster managed to escape and alert the authorities, describing the monstrous attackers he had encountered. His testimony spurred the local magistrates into action, and soon the alarm reached the ears of King James VI. Determined to end the reign of terror, King James VI himself led the hunt. His men, armed with torches and aided by bloodhounds, scoured the countryside. The tension was palpable, as the scent of fear and desperation hung in the air. Finally, they had something to go on, some source for this malevolent evil that had so held the people of Ayrshire in its grip. This was not some supernatural force, but flesh and blood men who had descended to the very depths of inhumanity. And that, the king and his men could put a stop to. The search led them to the cave's hidden entrance, luck on their side as the glimpse of the narrow entrance was caught at lowest tide. They ventured inside and found unimaginable horrors. The remnants of countless victims, limbs salted and preserved like meat in a larder. The Bean clan, numbering 48 by now, were all captured, their trial swift and their punishment brutal. The Bean clan was brought to Edinburgh, where their crimes were laid bare for all to see, and as a punishment for such heinous acts, the men were dismembered, their limbs severed, and they were left to bleed out in suffering. The women and children were all burned alive at the stake, their screams echoing through the streets. Justice, though brutal, was served, ending the reign of terror that had cast a dark shadow over Scotland. The townspeople at last could breathe a sigh of relief. The nightmare that had plagued their lives for so long was finally over. The cave, once a den of unspeakable horrors, now stood silent and abandoned, but for the ghostly echoes of its appalling past. And so the tale of Sawney Bean was etched into the annals of folklore. Whether born of truth or myth, it serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the hearts of men and the evil that often walks among us. The cave remains silent and abandoned, a relic of a time when terror ruled the land, and a reminder to take care and stay vigilant should you stray from the beaten path. And so Ayrshire earns its pin in our atlas of atrocities. Thank you for joining me on this tour through terrible history. I hope you will travel with us again. Until next time, stay vigilant, for the past has many shadows.